Well, welcome everyone. I apologize in advance. I forgot my webcam at my workplace. But that's okay because you're not here to see or hear from me, so it's okay. But welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Erica. I work for the JCC of Greater Buffalo, and I'm so lucky to work with Phil and Baruch on the virtual Jewish poetry series. They do all the work. They find all the poets, and they do a fantastic job as always. So just a reminder to try and keep
Okay,
yourselves
babes, let's
muted.
go.
Just to try to keep yourselves muted during the readings. That way, we just don't interrupt when someone's speaking. If you have anything you want to say about the reading during the reading, you can always use the chat. You can put hearts in there. You can, put clap emojis, all that fun stuff. But yeah, so without further ado, I will let Phil and Baruch take it away.
Just to say, I see that the wonderful poets put their websites or links to books, etc., on the chat. So if you want to take the poets home with you and keep them with you, check out their websites and their books, and that would be great. But so the information is on the chat if you want to know more about them and read more of their work. So, hey Baruch, how you doing? Can you hear me? You're muted.
You know what? I was just following orders,
Okay, get me up to
to
front
go
camera.
muted. So I'm sorry.
No, you're the last person should be muted. So yeah, welcome. Some of you might know that we do this Jewish poetry virtual reading series. We started during the pandemic because I was thinking it would be nice to have this during the pandemic because everybody was online and we're still continuing it. I enjoyed Zoom so much. I think we enjoyed it so much because we could do this together no matter where we lived. And so we continued, and we do it during the spring from January to May. Each month we have about three readers. And I don't know if you have the schedule or not, but if not, let us know. And the next one is March 19th because the dates on March are the same as February. We've got a full house of three. I think maybe we may even have four readers in March. I'm not sure. Three or four. Maybe Erica can tell us later who's going to be reading in March.
I'll
But
tell you at the end. How about that?
try to create a Hamish mood here and atmosphere, as if we're sitting around the campfire and just kind of listening to poetry and enjoying it. And it's always been such a wonderful experience, hasn't it, Baruch?
uh yeah, without a doubt. I'm surprised you're even asking.
Well, I don't want to throw it at you. I don't want to throw it
Okay, I'll take it.
Take that. Take that.
Yeah. All right. I want to welcome each and every one of you to our reading tonight. It's really wonderful to see all of you, whether you're hiding your faces or not. Uh, that's fine, but I'm just happy you're with us. And we have three excellent poets. So get ready to enjoy. Um, all right.
Okay.
Oh, 1 second, my
Without any
computer's
further ado,
freezing up.
we'd like to give the time as much time to poets as we can. So
Yeah,
we,
hold on.
we can kibitz all night, but we'll just proceed.
Okay. Um, skill, gusto, and style. These words make up just some of the great praise the revered poet Ilya Kaminsky gave to David Kaplan's recent book, North Shore. And such praise is justified, as Kaplan was able to write with both joy and sorrow, having lost his father. This is a balancing act few can maintain. What is interesting about both Julia and David, Julia, who is also reading tonight, is that they both share the ability to uh, create a completely new uh, vision in their poetry with each book, in a sense, but still maintain their voice, still keep their voice and bring their voice to that next book. And I think that's really what makes a great artist. the ability to be both your past and and become the present. Um, David is also has also been honored with two Fulbright lectureships in American literature. Without further ado, David, will you honor us with your poetry?
Baruch, thank you very much for that introduction. It's really wonderful to be invited by two fantastic poets, Baruch and Philip, and also to read with two other wonderful poets. So I'm really honored to be here. As Baruch mentioned, my most recent book is about elegies for my father, but I'd like to start with the poem from the previous book, which is titled "Into My Garden." My previous book is about it's set at a yeshiva, Morristown, New Jersey, the Chabad Lubavitch Yeshiva, and it follows someone who's both like me and unlike me. I read one poem from the book. It's a shortish poem, but it's maybe a sonnet-like poem. It's titled "Even the Thief," and it's built off this famous Gemara, at least famous in some Hasidic circles, which wonders as to why there's a thief who prays for success. And of course, the question is, if he's praying and believes in God, why is he stealing? And if he doesn't believe in God, why is he praying? So again, it's a short poem titled "Even the Thief." A night of snow no one expected. This late, the study hall sounds different. The same words said again, dark and glowing. A window scratched with its own mistakes. Everyone knows God controls the universe. My study partner translates without a pause. Even the thief prays for success. To know what you feel, not what you ought to feel. Is there anything harder? At the airport, a man with the book of Genesis tattooed down his leg boarded in front of me, and I couldn't help but wonder how it would feel to have those words that close. Then, as Brooke mentioned, my current book is North Shore, and it consists largely of elegies for my father, who passed away of Alzheimer's related complications. I wanted, in some ways, to honor him and to also honor my mother, who cared for him. And it's one of those things, perhaps as a child, you don't appreciate it. But I grew up in kind of a suburban Boston, heavily Jewish town. And now looking back, it's a kind of, I guess, suburban Jewish experience that no longer exists. So the first two poems I'm going to read partly about him and partly about her and her taking care of him. As anyone knows, when a family member passes away, it just ripples through the whole family. And she, mainly bore the burden of caring for him and did it really selflessly. And I always thought that elegies often, at least the elegies I know, don't talk about caretakers enough. This is a poem titled Kitchen. When my mother asked him, "Do you know who this is?" My father turned his head to find the right angle. Pointing, she said the first sound in my name. All those years, I could not wait to get away. David, David, my mother repeated, drawing out the two syllables like a spell. And the ripped out back wall returned to the kitchen, the tall cabinets that I could not reach as a boy. A blue ceramic bowl dried upside down beside the sink. If I am I, because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I, and you are not you. A great mystic taught his students. But isn't it always true of fathers and sons? I am I because you are you. Even after the father does not recognize his son, and the son realizes everything in life is learned too late. And this other poem also is about my mother and how she, in some ways, had to redesign the physical space of the house to help care for him. It started mornings like this. It was one of the tricks my mother learned. She hired a contractor to expand the bathroom with a shower big enough for her and my father because he needed her there to clean him. Her voice, the only one he recognized, repeating, "It's okay," when he grabbed her wrist. What does she think on mornings like this, showering inside that big space, responsible only to herself? "It's okay," she said. sometimes a question, sometimes a plea, like the prayers I was taught as a boy, not knowing what they meant. At a certain point, I started writing this book and I just started writing a bunch of poems. And at a certain point, you realize, oh, this could be a book. And then you realize you how to do different things. And I thought all these poems would make for a very desolate reading experience. So I thought a little bit more about that culture, and I liked the kind of old-fashioned jokes that people don't tell anymore. But I wanted to tell some in my poems. Also, I should say that as I was crafting this book, Julia edited it, and she also is really very helpful in rethinking lines, and so I'm delighted to read with her also, and also to read with Joshua, whose work I admire. So this is a poem, My Father Playing Cards, and again, it's having these trying to have these old kind of old Jewish jokes told in an elegy. My father playing cards. If you want to know friendship, watch them play poker. Watch them deal cards, pass bowls of pretzels and salty chips, and retell jokes too old for this century, like the one about the rabbi, sick of it all, retired to Florida. On Yom Kippur, he goes golfing. Hashem, how can you let this happen? All the angels protest. Why not smite him with a downpour, maybe some well-placed lightning? Enough, Hashem tells them, so what can they do? The angels shut up. The rabbi strides to the first tee, no wait time at all, stretches his stiff back in quads, and addresses the ball. And the angels are getting ready to start squawking again about sin and ingratitude. So Hashem says not one more word. But then the rabbi playing golf on Yom Kippur hits a hole in one. The angels go wild, howling about the desecration, the violation of the holiest day of the year by a heretic and a pom-pom tartan flat cap, who should be in synagogue, beating his chest, bowing and fasting, not stuffing his face with the hot dog topped high with sauerkraut, and hitting a hole in one on a postcard day with no clouds, and Hashem showing why he is Hashem, infinitely wise and just, asked the protesting angels, so who is he going to tell? Watch the men laugh because they know that having a story and not being able to share it is the worst punishment of all. A circle of laughing men who could have told the joke themselves. And watch my father add a little imitation chortle, a crooked little ha ha, laughing because they are laughing, still recognizing that sound. And one of my father's friends turns his cards over for him and tells him he has won. So I like those poems. I like I'm sorry, those jokes, because in some ways, if you admire them, they're like so bad they're good. And I wanted to try to get, my poems tend to be kind of quiet and restrained and very literary. I wanted to get a whole other kind of language into it. Um, I also wanted to, as I wrote this book, try to get my parents' sense of their actual lives, not just, my father in his illness. So this is the next poem, which begins in the present and then moves back to when they first were dating. It's titled Pray for What You Need. 25 hours into the fast, twilight hurries across the town green and steeples, hurries to this little synagogue by the Atlantic. Pray for what you need, the rabbi said. So that's what I did. I prayed for an ordinary day, for my father to wake early, shower, shave, dress himself, and ask my mother where today's globe is, startling her dozing in the chair beside his bed. A curse into a blessing. Isn't that what we call it? I prayed for what I needed, for the unfairness of a kind man dying cruelly to be rectified, and my parents to return to their lives, tease each other and laugh no different now than 60 years ago, when my father arrived for a date a little too proud of his new blazer and tie, and my mother scooped a pile of rake leaves and dumped it over his head. So I'm just going to end with two poems that are partly about um, going through the mourning process. Is any Jewish person who's lost an immediate relative knows about this kind of very the strict progression of how you go through mourning. And it's both a comfort and a kind of wisdom and I suppose a challenge. So this is titled Souls Must Exist. Because a mourner changes place in synagogue, I move a few seats closer to the window and watch the Atlantic double back, like the prayers we repeat morning, afternoon, and night. Souls must exist, otherwise life would be too hard. After my father died, the two of us alone in the hospice room, I asked him to forgive me for all the times I failed him. I could barely say it, but needed to hear him, needed to hear. I'm sorry, I could barely say it, but needed him to hear and forgive me. My mother waiting in the hallway to be driven home. The mirrors not yet covered in sheets. Our pictures on the table. His face, mine, mine, his. And then I'll end with the last poem in the book, which is titled Some in Light, Some in Shade. And the subtitle is On My Father's Third Yahrzeit. And there's a poem by Elizabeth Bishop, which she subtitles it On My Birthday. I've always admired how much her description just gains a certain charge from it. So she never has to say kind of what that is. And so I tried to have a similar description of a kind of natural landscape and a meditation upon it, just informed by the fact that this is the 30th anniversary of my father's death. So again, this poem is titled Some in Light, Some in Shade, and the subtitle is On My Father's Third Yahrzeit. A mistake my neighbor called the flower bed where he planted the rhododendrons. I watched him dig them up and replant them closer to the street. Some do better in light, some in shade. That's all they needed, co-sexual, stamen and stem, purpled marble with lilac, suspended like Venetian chandeliers above the dirt. All summer, walkers stopped to envy them. They never missed a day, those walkers with their little dogs. They checked their progress on their watches. They counted each step. There are two kinds of knowledge I learned in yeshiva. The first is incremental. It adds to what you already know. To gain the second, you must give up who you are. All winter I waited for it to happen. When I prayed to enter the words I whispered. Stunned by the early frost, the shrubs grayed overnight. I can almost feel it on mornings like this. Feel how each of us, brittle as pollen, temporary as ice, will rise from the body's last regret, just as the walkers disregard the forecast and shiver into mist. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. That was really wonderful. It's really great to hear those poems come to life through your voice, especially the ones in your recent book. Um, the other ones were great too, but I feel like I needed to hear the new ones. Um, okay. Um, Now moving forward, um, rabbi, poet, journalist, filmmaker, poetry editor, Julia Knobloch has had more hats than the hat store, yet they all seem to have fit her. When she was at Ben Yehuda Press as the editor, I was lucky to have her insights into my recent book, um, and very thankful. However, tonight is about Julia the poet. And it has been said that in her poetry, she seeks redemption through travel and articulates with clarity what it feels like to be adrift in the in-between lands. I would like to add to that comment about how she migrates from each book of poetry she writes to the next, bringing the familiar with her, but also treating the reader to a transformation, similar to what I said uh, about David's poetry. This is the challenge of a dedicated artist to maintain her style while giving the audience something unseen in her work before. Julia, uh, let's hear it.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil and Baruch, for inviting me. And it's a delight to be reading with David and Joshua, and also to see Charlene actually on the Zoom. I think in the full swing of the pandemic, David, she and I did read for the series together. So it's kind of nice to be in the same space again. And thank you to everyone for coming on. I'll be only reading poems from my most recent collection, liner notes. And this book has many layers, and they all kind of the poems echo each other. They kind of mirror each other. They lead into each other. And for every reading, I'm trying to do a different set. And that kind of fits to what Baruch was saying about keeping the voice, but adding different angles. So for today, I have focused on geographic places that all add different threads of narrative to the book. They are Los Angeles, Israel, and Germany, and a little bit of New York as well. So I'm going to start with a poem about Los Angeles. It's called Soledad Canyon. Between lost hills and dry ravines, a church and an adobe house, a brick reservoir, Agua Dulce, Santa Madre, mother of all aqueducts. In Silmar, power winds down the mountain like the fence between Eilat and Taba, like Mulholland meandering past empty homesteads and lonesome oaks, like the pass snaking down to Sycamore Cove. On the day after Yom Kippur, sheltered by my open trunk door, I see ships land and missiles fly. Little have I changed, although I contain shards from all the places I have been. I always hear the desert wailing, trains whistling on arid tracks in the Sonora, an ocean sweeping from the Kinneret to the Arava, where air and water taste of sulfur, danger heights across the border, landmines and fault lines, shattered pitchers at stolen cisterns in the valley on US 395. Jerusalem. Maybe I have known you always because you are the mother of all cities, mother of fire and mother of mercy, city at the edge of wilderness, city of jewels, eucalyptus, and crows, of sniper-safe tunnels to heaven. Maybe because you are a fortress, heir to the crushed promise, to see a savior break through a walled-up gate, like rays of sun from the desert to your east. Maybe because I once fell in love within your borders, and now you are all that's left, with your graves on the Mount of Olives, stoic palm trees, sweeping breezes that twirl windmill sails like folk dancers, yellow ribbons flapping in the blue. Maybe I have known you always because the Mediterranean is near, great sea of my youth, womb of my longings, at sunrise and sunset, where I first tasted figs and kisses. Now we are landlocked together, you and I, yet your terraced hills, your pines and cypresses, your crickets hiding in thyme bushes promise that behind the next shrine, behind the next curve, there will be water. And the next poem is a prose poem, and it kind of combines Germany and Los Angeles. It's called Mannheim Station. Mannheim is a town, a city in southwestern Germany. At Mannheim Station, the world shrinks and expands. Distance is relative to who we are. Decades ago, this station seemed the gateway to the world. Tracks and dandelion, signal lights and switches, the teacher's command to walk in pairs, to not get lost, brakes screeching. It was the entry point back into safety, the local train across the platform, stale smoke in compartment wagons with brown and orange plush, Summer skies heavy with dark gray clouds behind the water tower. Our teacher pulled down the window. We fell asleep, uneaten apple slices in checkered knapsacks. Almost 10,000 kilometers from Mannheim Hauptbahnhof, a father talks with me about this railroad hub connecting east and west, or north and south. For a moment he is not sure, and I don't know. It doesn't matter. We share excitement for this port on the Rhine, cargo ships and alphabet streets, this bombed-out workman's city, rebuilt ugly and confusing, with grand parks, green swimming holes. I want to mention that my father wrote his dissertation there and rode his Vespa through humid nights, but then I don't. Nor do I say I have a friend whose grandmother fled Mannheim as a child and that she looks like a local girl, girls I sat in classrooms with. Nor that I wish my host could have changed trains there too after a field trip on a visit to his parents. If this were possible, it's not. He would not be this man in California weaving a map of Germany while his mother and his son observe in silence. I don't say that like him, like me, his son, my friend, would not exist. We came to life because others were forced in all directions, nor that I wish I could remain talking, weaving, sheltered by two large candles behind me, in his house where his family has lived 35 years and some, nor that I wish I was a child again, a child who never left, who followed the command to walk in pairs, a girl who knows she's almost home when she arrives at Mannheim Station. Ides of March. The cherry trees were blooming, the air was humid, and the sun stood low as I led you to them in my orange dress. They waited for you with open arms. My mother told you that they got to see the most wonderful sunsets from the deck, and how lucky we were tonight, with the wind dispersing the noise from the highway. Strands of hair streamed across her face. My father pointed to the hills in the northeast, across the river, and patted your shoulder for lack of words. My brother gave me a wink and smiled at you in the evening's haze. When the bells stopped ringing, you emerged from the shadows. You shamed my mother, choked my father, stabbed my brother. I fell as quietly as a cherry blossom. In the meadow, my orange dress turned dark. The moon rose, and the wind changed. The end of December. At 4 a.m, beauty heights in silent streets, I used to saunter through such velvet vastness and bring the sun into my house as one who says it is good when entering an unfamiliar city, because God said so too in the beginning. Now the date palm whom I love looks sad, battered from the storm. Her fronds, once perky like the righteous, are brown and droop. She bore no fruit this summer. And I stayed to keep her company while the dark blue turns purple, while my womb expires. Unused compassion gushes forth for days on end, while the year is fading out. God of mercy, where are my childhood's hopping crows? And where is Joseph, our brother now? And is the cockatoo in Venice still asleep? And is it jet lag, bitterness, or grief that wakes me up each night and makes me wait for dawn? Light peeks through cypresses and finds my face. Shout for joy, burst into song. One more year and I am set to reap fruits of my labor in a place still unrevealed. I might leave this now familiar city. I might cut bonds that never were. Might say, it is good, because in the morning the men were sent away. And we're going back to Jerusalem. It's a poem, actually, that kind of continues a poem I wrote, a different poem, but it kind of, that I wrote several years prior to writing this one. And it kind of continues and picks up where the other poem left on some level. It's called Archaeology. Empty-handed I return from the rich man's field. Again, the moon stands high over Jaffa Street. Shabbat is over. Shutters are pushed up again. The air is filled with jasmine scent. Today, my songs have fallen silent. Like an exhausted prophet in a purple valley, I am haunted by an unspoken truth. A spoon swirls in a tea glass inside a gutted house on a one-way street that runs in two directions. How can I write about date palms again, their shadows measuring the hours of the sun, reminding me I was not chosen? From where will redemption come in the city where the gate of mercy is walled up? Regret engraved in every stone, tangible like the re-erected columns in the Cardo that were found when we returned. Roman ruins, preservers of our past. Between the ground levels then and now, between layers of lust and yearning, shopkeepers call out to customers. Between white golden dawns and orange sunsets, in royal blue damask nights, I keep unearthing, keep believing. I want my portion. The next one is set in northern Israel in the Galilee. Zimmer in the forest. When you're in Israel, sometimes when they rent out a room. Zimmer is Yiddish German for room, right? So Zimmer for rent, means we have a room. A Zimmer in the forest. Behind olive trees and pines, a white light calls as the air cools down and shadows fall on treetops that linger in the sun, on stones and terracotta soil. The storm of light dark green and citrus yellow that has engulfed me all day calms down. Poppies close their petals. Later, Adi and I walk through the moshav, together with most of her children. Tefillah has long begun when she points to where the white light from before has turned into stripes of orange, red, and purple. What a sunset, she says, and the 4-year-old stumbles and cries. The baby in the stroller looks surprised, and her brother picks up his kippah as a car is passing by. And I hear men singing in the Beit Midrash like we will sing around the table, a new song, "Come into my garden, bloom my vine." And as I take in one more glance, I think I see, as if painted by Chagall, the rabbis from Tiberias, wrapped in their most splendid garments, floating over the valley that sinks into a velvet night. And I'm going to close with a poem from Long Island. Montauk Point. I have been here before we arrived. I know the smell of salt seeped into walls and floors. Summers never erased by air conditioning. White cupboards and lined shelves. Mowed grass, the sky at noon. I slip barefoot through many doors and curtains, the sunlight between the ocean and the bay. Later, fractured rays fall on polished skin, the thicket of my hair, toned arms, waves behind my eyes. Damp towels waft like pines outside the kitchen windows, hydrangeas, gleaming oak leaves. The earth spins through the stars. An orange moon rises. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for that tour. I feel I was in all those places. Lines we came to life because I think there's something like we came to life because others were forced into different directions.
In all directions, yeah.
Yeah, that really was among many powerful moments in your poems. Thank you so much. And David, that joke was great. I love that joke. In the midst of the grief, of course, but we still need jokes, and I want to encourage more jokes for all of us, especially in these times. I'm really honored to say a few words about Joshua. I've kind of known him for a long time in a way, because he was the editor of Tikkun magazine for 30 years or something. Is that right?
Yeah, the poetry editor, yeah.
poetry editor, of course. I want to confuse you with Michael Lerner. And I just loved Cocoon, and he was very supportive, and the poetry was wonderful. But that's not all. He's really a poetry citizen. As He's done so much, and he does so much. He has three books. The first one, The World's Room, came out in 2001, and I even got that back then. Hey, still there. Um, and I mean, he's a poet, translator, and scholar, and just really knowledgeable about poetry in so many different ways. And um, 2006, he came out with from the Book of Giants, which won the Larry Levis Award, which I'm totally has gotten me because I'm a huge Larry Levis fan, and that book didn't disappoint in any way. There's Then he switched over to editing, and edited At the Barriers on the poetry of Tom Gunn. That's what I mean by a poetry citizen. It's so wonderful that there's it's sort of a tireless thing to be a university professor at the University of Maryland, a really important translator, important editor, doing the work, the digging, the labor in the poetry factory. I think Joshua is really a great citizen and representative of that. In 2012, he wrote this book of poetry called The Figure of Man Being Swallowed by a Fish, which is I think it takes it in so many different directions. It's really the poems are a lot like the title, as the title represents. Then in 2016, he did a thing called the Berlin Notebook, which was a kind of serial thing that he did for the Los Angeles Book Review, right? And
Yeah. Hmm.
it was about the German and otherwise refugee situation in Germany, and it became collected into a book. By the way, he also has one of the best websites I've ever seen. So I highly recommend going to his website because it is the coolest website. I don't know how you do that. Must have a little tribe of people, of elves, doing this website because it's really cool. And there's a few books that you can download. For this book, the money goes to where does the money go for the Berlin book? There's a sort of a
It goes to the International Rescue Committee.
International Rescue, right? So it's worth picking up, very much so. Um, then in 2018, he made a big there's a bit of a switcheroo with a book called Everything I Do Good. Isn't that a great title? Trump Poems. Everything I do good. And I was trying to hint maybe to hear a few, but I don't think he's. But maybe a sequel. Maybe that's too much to do a sequel on that. But that came out in 2018. Dispatches from the Poetry Wars published it. And that's also, you can find that online. And check out his website. And it's quite amusing and and sharply amusing. And then in 2022, he switched again to translate Nobel Prize winning, often called a Holocaust poet, but so much more, Nelly Sachs, which is right here, which is an incredible phrase worthy of its facility. He really the introduction's 50 pages long or something, and it's really smart and insightful, and it's a great work of translation. I'm still reading it, and it's just fantastic. It includes the poem that you read for the Nobel Award ceremony, I guess, and it's good to bring Nelly Sachs back. Thank you so much for that translation. Beyond that, he's won a few awards like the Whiting, the Rome Prize. I mentioned the Larry Levis Reading Prize, the Amy Lowell Travel Scholarship, the Guggenheim, and who knows what else. um, But I wanted to also say that one more thing. I know I'm going on for a long time, but and a little thing on, there's a lot of about him that you can find online, but in writing about Peter Cole's translations of Hebrew poetry, which is wonderful, from the Muslim and Christian Spain, Joshua says that the translation suggests the artistic possibilities of material mixed with divergent gestures. To make such incorporations requires an imaginative openness that is its own kind of hopeful spiritual journey. I would argue that Joshua himself, his poetry and translations, and everything else he's doing to bring to light refugees and all that other stuff. And his humanity is reflected in his exploratory studies, his penetrating and hilarious sometimes humor, satire of our political moment also achieve an imaginative um, openness that is its own kind of spiritual journey. So I can't wait to hear what he has to offer. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, thanks, Philip, and thanks to you and to Baruch for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here with you all and to be able to share the space with such fine poets. Um, I'm going to read a few different things that I think are connected and are have just kind of come out or are coming out this spring. The first is a translation of a fragment from Rainer Maria Rilke's The Book of Pilgrimage. It's one of the three long poems in Rainer Maria Rilke's Das Stundenbuch, or the Book of Hours, a book from the early 20th century. And it's a poem that I started translating with the poet J. Hopler. And we got about 70 lines in before he died. And uh, and so um, and so it's appeared here as a fragment in this anthology, Best Literary Translations 2026, which the new U.S. Poet Laureate Arthur Z has edited, and that'll be out in April. And it's full of really wonderful things. I think Rilke's always asking kind of one question throughout his life and his poems, which is how is it possible to live a spiritual life in the modern world, and where do we find it? What is that like? So, a fragment from the Book of Pilgrimage by Rainer Maria Rilke, translated by me and the poet Jay Hopler. I'm going to turn on this light so I can see what I'm doing. The storm's force comes as no surprise. You've watched it grow. The trees leave. Their flight creates striding avenues. Then you know the one they flee before is the one to whom you go. It's him all your senses sing as you stand at the window. The summer week stood still, the tree sap on the rise. Now you feel it, its will to fall into the maker of all things. You thought you knew the power once you grasped the fruit. Now, again, it's a mystery, and you again a guest. Like your house, the summer was. You knew every inch of it. Now you must leave. Go out into your heart as you might a plane. So begins the great bewilderness. The days go numb. From your senses, the wind withdraws. The world, like withered leaves. Through bare branches, your sky, it sees you there. So be earth now, in evening song, in the land where you belong. Be humble now, a thing made real by its ripening, that the source of all things feels what it grabs. You, God of my nights and days, I'm praying again that again you hear me through the wind, because from my depths the words never yet released surge forth with power. I was distracted. Then the adversary, myself, was shattered. Oh God, everyone laughed at me, and all the tinkers drank me down. In the tree-lined streets, I assembled myself from the garbage, an old glass. With half a mouth I mouthed you, harmonious, eternal. How I raised my hands to you in nameless adoration, so that I could see again with the eyes that once beheld you. I was a burned out house, a real murderer's squat before fear of the gallows hounds them to the open ground. I was like a city by the sea, ringed by plague, heavy, a corpse hanging on the hands of children. Like everybody else, I was a stranger to myself. Who was he? Who hurt my young mother once when she carried me in her womb, and her heart, besieged, beat painfully against my stirring? Now I am rebuilt again from all the fragments of my shame, and long for a bond, for a binding to a single mind who looks over me as a thing for your heart's great hands to hold. Oh, if only they would pick me up. I count myself, my God, I calculate. And you have the right to squander me as you will. So that's as far as we got. This next thing jumps forward, let's say 50 years. It's by the Austrian poet Ernst Jandl, um, who goes at the kind of the myth, the legend of Rilke as a spiritual being who's become almost a kind of symbol of that. And kind of empties him and fills him up again. The Ordinary Rilke by Ernst Jandl. It's a short series of short poems, and it begins with this one. Rilke's separation. The extraordinary Rilke and the ordinary Rilke are stuck in their sameness. The extraordinary Rilke and the ordinary Rilke would have stayed together. The extraordinary Rilke and the ordinary Rilke would have to separate. The extraordinary Rilke and the ordinary Rilke both knew it. Rilke's breath. Rilke breathed the air, the good air. Rilke breathed without pause. Rilke's nose. Entrance and exit of the air. It knew stench, scent, aroma, handkerchief, sniffles. Rilke's name. Rilke, said he when asked for his name. Rilke, one said when asked for his name, or never heard of him. Rilke unrhymed. Rilke, said he. Then he said, cuke. Then, quietly, cloud. Rilke's boat, taking a stroke, sitting there, taking a stroke. Rilke's drawer. He pulled out the drawer. He put something in. Something was in there. He pushed in the drawer. He pulled out the drawer. Something was in there. He took something out. He pushed in the drawer. He pulled out the drawer. Nothing was in there. He put nothing in. He left the drawer open. Rilke's chest. He lifted up the lid. He put something in. Something was in there. He shut the lid. He lifted up the lid. Something was in there. He took something out. He shut the lid. He lifted up the lid. Nothing was in there. He put nothing in. He left the chest open. Rilke's shoe. Rilke's shoe was one of two. Each shoe of Rilke's was one of two. Rilke in shoes always wore two. Calf to calf stood Rilke, jutting up from his shoes. Rilke's window. He opened the window, stuck his head out, pulled his head in, closed it. He opened the window. Morning air rushed in, evening air, night air. He closed the window. Rilke's glass. Rilke took a glass, filled it with water, lifted it to his mouth, drank. Rilke's hand. Rilke's hand and Rilke's hand hanging by his side. Rilke's hand in Rilke's hand, the one in the other. Rilke's hand and the hand of another, greeting him. Rilke's hand at Rilke's mouth, sensing it there. Rilke's conversation. Someone asks, Rilke answers. Rilke asks. Someone answers. Neither is very happy about it, neither is very sad. Rilke's reward. This now was his reward. Nobody was certain what he meant. Rilke wept. Rilke's contradiction. And yet small and white, and yet big and black, and yet small and black, and yet big and white, and yet small and big, and yet white and black, and yet small and black, and yet big and small and black. Rilke's eyes. Rilke opened his eyes. Everything was visible. Nothing was invisible. Rilke shut his eyes. Nothing was visible. Everything was invisible. Rilke opened his eyes. Nothing was invisible. Everything was visible. Rilke shut his eyes. Nothing was visible. Nothing was invisible. Rilke's weight. Rilke is being relieved of his weight. So roughly does the earth raise her son. So it's a little book, a pamphlet that was published this winter by the Economy Press, which is this wonderful pamphlet press located in Chicago and run by the poet Anthony Opal. And I'll end with a final poem that's it's kind of cheating because it's really two short poems, a kind of diptych that I put together with two other translations. And so it's called Two Poems About the Soul. And the first one is called Spirit Song Over the Waters, and it's by Goethe. Spirit Song Over the Waters. The soul, like water, from heaven drops to climb to heaven and again fall to earth, eternally changing. When pure plunging streams from high steep rock face spray soft rolling cloud forms against smooth fells, light swelling veils undulate lavishly, rushing deeper down. And when cliffs shoot up against its fall, in a vexed lather, roiling, discouraged, it steps into the void. Over shallow beds, it winds through the valley, and in lake glass, drifting stars reflect upon their countenance. Wind is the wave's dear devoted lover, churning up from the ground in foaming surges. Human soul, how like the water you are. Human fate, how like the wind. And it's matched here again by Ernst Jandl in a poem called Die Seele, the soul. With one hand, the boy points up, with the other to the fresh dirt mound and laughs. If grandfather is down there, how can he be up there? Ah, yeah, the soul.
5:01 p.m.
Thank you.
What a perfect ending. Thank you so much, Joshua. That was really expansive, creative, and surprising in terms of where it's going to go next. Are those is that first Roca poem? That's on your website, right? That's available.
It's not available until April. It's in this anthology, but there's a wonderful online journal called Waxwing, and
Oh,
they run translations. And so the translation is there, and it has a note about how Jay Hopler and I worked together on the translation.
great.
Yeah.
What a wide, expansive bunch of poets you are, bringing us from Elegies for the Father, Travels, Rilke. Um, this is why we do this. So, anybody want to chat or say anything, or have any questions or response? Or
That was awesome.
there you go.
Very good. Very good stuff.
I just want to thank the poets, thank Phil for working with me, thank Erica for making everything possible, and thank the JCC of Buffalo for their help too. Before we hear some comments from our audience or from our poets.
Proud. I just love that this is like this Jewish virtual poetry series, but the wide range belies that title, you know, which is what it's all about. So,
I would just like to say that, well, first of all, thank you uh, to the three of you for putting this together, and for David and Julia for joining this program, and for all of you being here. But also, this is really what it's all about, creating this kind of intimate space where we can gather to share poetry. And I really appreciate that.
That's tremendous. Thank you, Joshua.
yeah, that's why we do it. We need it more and more. I mean, we always needed it. It just feels a little bit more urgent now. I don't know. Maybe it's always that way, but it just really senses that. And I do have to say that at first I was really totally anti-Zoom, but it does allow us to do this from all different parts of the world. And I'm really happy that you read translations, Joshua, because I don't know if we've had that before. Maybe a little bit, I think, but not a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. And I'd like to encourage more of that, actually. So thank you for that. And Julia, bringing us your wide range of travels, Jerusalem to the was it the Bronx? Oh no, it was part of New York. It was the last one of the last poems was
Montauk.
yeah, gotcha. And David just and just it just brings in so there's a universe out there, and we got pieces of that universe, and really in a wonderful, intimate way. So thank you. So there's the books are on the chat, I hope, and Erica, thank you so much. Even though your physical presence is somewhere else,
It's okay. I have a picture, so that helps a
it's
little
a
bit.
wonderful picture that's embodied in your voice. And now Richard Michelson has joined us. Thank you, Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I was a little late. I've been traveling and just got back home.
Well,
It doesn't matter that you're late. You
But tuned
appearing
right
at all
into
is
poetry
a
when I
great
got
honor.
here. So,
well, the good news is that it's recorded, right,
Yeah.
Erica?
Yep.
yes,
Yep.
I'll catch what I missed on the recording. Thank you.
Yeah,
And you will
of
send us
course.
a link, I assume.
Yes, I will have them upload it to our YouTube, and then I'll send everybody a link. I'll also send out all the links to the poets' books and their
Wonderful.
websites and such in that same email too. It'll just give me a couple days. Probably it'll be done by maybe early next week, tomorrow if I'm lucky, but we'll see.
Well, when you get to it, thank you so much. And come join us if you can on March 19th. I'm sure you'll get an email from Baruch about that.
Yeah.
And he's
Okay.
our caller. He'll blow the shofar and everybody will come. So have a wonderful evening and keep keep with the poetry. Yeah.
Shabbat shalom to
Thank you.
all.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you guys. Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a good one.